everyone! Today, we have a crush challenge. Sorry for any grammar mistakes, lol. Anywho, I hope you enjoy. Fall asleep on your crush's shoulder challenge. November 21st, 6:30 p.m. Hinata slammed the ball onto the ground, a loud thud echoing through the gym. Other than the ball rolling on the other side of the net, all you could hear was his and Kageyama's ragged breathing. He looked up at Kageyama, who was mindlessly looking at the net. Hinata took the time to grab a sip of his water and check his phone. He walked over to the bench, whilst pouring the water into his mouth. He held his phone up to his eyes. A certain message grabbed his attention. It was a challenge from Iwaoi. He looked up at Kageyama, who was now walking towards him. Fall asleep on my crush. This might have been the easiest challenge to complete. His scenario was set up perfectly. Hinata slumps onto the bench, trying to act tired. Which wasn't hard to do, considering they just finished an extra practice. You're tired already. Kageyama sits on the bench next to Hinata. He leans his head back and relaxes, occasionally taking sips of his water. A silence falls between them before a quiet snoring is heard. Hinata drops his head onto Kageyama's shoulder, pretending to sleep. Kageyama immediately tenses up. Idiot! He mumbles under his breath. You should have told me that you were tired. Kageyama carefully stands up, letting Hinata drop onto the bench. Hinata bites back a hiss in order to keep up the facade. Kageyama quickly packs up their bags and cautiously hauls Hinata onto his back. He walks out the gym and starts the walk towards Hinata's house. You're lucky, I know where you live. Kageyama continues to walk, soon feeling a thump on the top of his head. He yelps, earning a giggle from Hinata. Boo, I'm awake. Then get off my back. Oh man. Hinata scrambles off Kageyama's back. He reaches for his bag, but Kageyama's grip tightens on it. Hinata decides to let it go. They continue to walk together, in comfortable silence. Finn. November 21st, 5 p.m. Yamaguchi was seated on the floor in Tsukishima's room, books and notes spread out before him as he completed some left-over homework. Suddenly, his phone buzzed against the carpet, taking him out of his focus state. He glanced down at the message on his screen. It was a challenge from Iwaoi. Fall asleep on your crush's shoulder. Yamaguchi's heart began to race as a wave of nervousness washed over him. He couldn't help but worrying about how Tsukishima would respond to the challenge. His mind started to fill with anxious thoughts. So caught up in his head, he failed to notice Tsukishima's silent re-entry from the bathroom. Yamaguchi. Yamaguchi's anxious spiral was abruptly interrupted as Tsukishima's voice cut through the air, calling out his name. Caught off guard, Yamaguchi involuntarily flinched before he looked up at Tsukishima. Tsukishima's sharp gaze captured Yamaguchi's involuntary flinch, causing him to raise an eyebrow in curiosity. Without a word, he carefully lowered himself onto the floor, positioning himself directly in front of Yamaguchi. Did I scare you? Just a little. With a sheepish smile, he reached up with his hand and scratched the back of his neck. Sorry. Tsukishima casually cast a brief glance in Yamaguchi's direction before turning his attention back to his own textbook and notes. Yamaguchi, in turn, exhaled heavily, a sound that of resignation. He took a moment to observe Tsukishima silently. How was he supposed to do the challenge if Tsukishima was across from him? Tsuki, can you come over here? Yamaguchi lightly patted the spot next to him, gesturing him to come over here. Tsukishima raised a brow, but decided to comply. He got up and walked over to Yamaguchi's side of the table, sitting next to him. Do you need something? Can you check my work? Tsukishima took a glance at the papers, picking one up and comparing his and Yamaguchi's answers. Yamaguchi took this moment to softly yawn, playing into the challenge. As the minutes passed, Yamaguchi leaned against Tsukishima's shoulder, gradually allowing his body to slump against him. His eyes shuttered closed, trying to portray the image of someone who had fallen asleep. Surprisingly, Tsukishima continued to act as though nothing was out of the ordinary, his focus solely on the papers before him, his face betraying no reaction. We got the same answers. Tsukishima places the papers back down on the table. He carefully got up, trying to make sure Yamaguchi didn't wake up. He walked over to his bed, grabbing a pillow and a blanket. He places the pillow underneath Yamaguchi's head and covered him with the blanket. Tsukishima then sat on the other side of the table, his eyes trained on Yamaguchi. Good night, Yams. Finn. November 21st, 3:45 p.m. Kenma was comfortably settled on the edge of Kuro's bed, engrossed in a game on his Nintendo. Meanwhile, Kuro sat a few feet away, studying a textbook, his brow slightly furrowed in concentration. The room was quiet, save for the occasional clicking sound from Kenma's console and the rustling of pages as Kuro turned them in his book. Game over, the Nintendo announced for the 18th time, as Kenma dropped it on Kuro's bed. He cursed under his breath. He glanced at Kuro, who was hard at work, and tried to bite back his tongue to not disturb him. Kenma reached for his phone. A message from Oikawa was on his screen. It was a crush challenge. Kenma rolled his eyes. He never liked doing those challenges. They were too much work. He'd rather try to finish the level he was stuck on. This one seemed easy enough. If anything, Kuro would end up doing something to make it easier for him to do the challenge. Kenma, are you staying over? Kenma nodded. It was common for them to sleep over at each other's houses, considering they'd been friends since childhood. Okay. Kuro stood up and stretched, his shirt slightly lifting up. A detail Kenma most definitely did not miss. I'm going to go take a shower. Kuro walked out of the room, leaving Kenma alone with his thoughts. Kenma settled for making another attempt at his game. Picking up his Nintendo, he focuses on the game. About 30 minutes later, Kuro walks back into the room, a towel wrapped around his waist and one draped over his shoulder. Kenma glances up at him and stares. He stares hard, not even bothering to hide his stare, as shown by Kuro's amused yet slightly scared expression. Game over, the Nintendo announces one again, yet Kenma didn't react to it. He was too focused on watching Kuro change. Kenma, it's rude to stare. Kuro says, light-heartedly. Kenma huffed before paying attention back to his game, earning a chuckle from Kuro. Kuro, come here. Without much question, Kuro walked over to the edge of the bed, where Kenma was sitting. Kenma tugs his shirt, gesturing him to get onto the bed. Kuro complies, getting on the bed and sitting next to Kenma. Kenma leaned his head against Kuro's shoulder, who instinctively wraps his arm around him. Is this all you wanted? Kenma nods, continuing to play his game. Kuro leaned his head back and hummed softly. Finn. Thank you for watching. I'll post part 2 in, hopefully today's. Please like and subscribe. Bye.